Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we're going to investigate curves in Photoshop and show you exactly what it can do. So basically, like I've just said, we're going to talk about curves today in Photoshop. Curves is a super powerful adjustment that you can apply to any image to do pretty much anything that you want to do. Now, if you're new here, I'm Jess. I'm a photographer person. I take photographs of all sorts of things, usually animals, but not always. If you would like to, please do hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Those two will help you out to always keep up to date with any new videos. We upload every single week and sometimes more than that if we feel like it and if we have time. Really quick plug for the membership community. The premium membership is where members get more. They get access to all full edits, they get access to actions, they get access to monthly critiques and a whole host of other benefits. We'll link the information for that in the description below. Anyway, back to curves. So curves in Photoshop, essentially, like I said before, is an adjustment. Now, an adjustment, essentially, you can bring an image in and then apply an adjustment to it. Curves is an adjustment layer. You can access it via the adjustment layer, which gives you it as a separate little thing that you can mask through, or you can use it as a global adjustment. Now, I'm going to be confusing some people right now, so if you're brand new to Photoshop, either check out our Photoshop for Beginners course, which will get you well up to speed on all of what I'm talking about, or go ahead and watch my Basics of Photoshop video, which I will link above. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at an image that I've got on the screen right now of Skylar and Alfie. Skylar is an adorable little girl who has known Alfie since Alfie was literally born, and they've got a really special connection. So we went to photograph that the other week, and this is one of the shots from that shoot. So what we're going to do is look at this image and essentially kind of run some adjustments on it. So this is a raw file. This is literally straight out of camera. We've got some hot highlights here. We've got some very dark blacks here, kind of normal stuff when you're photographing anything that has the extremes, white and black. And we're going to basically explore them with curves adjustment layers. So let's go and look at what the curves adjustment layer is and where to find it. In Photoshop, you want to be making sure that you can see your layers panel. Now, if you want your workspace to look exactly the same as mine, then you can go ahead and follow a video tutorial, which I will link above, which will walk you through those steps. But we're going to bypass that today. You just need to find your layers panel. If you can't see it, go window and then layers, and that will bring up the layers panel. At the bottom of the layers panel, you've got this circular icon that's basically kind of like cut in half. So it's a circle that's in half. You want to click on that, and that's your adjustment layers. Inside this, we're going to go ahead and find curves. So when we've got curves, we're just going to click on that, and what that'll do is it will add a layer that is a curves adjustment layer. With our curves adjustment layer visible, what we can then do is head up to the properties or just click on that little icon right here, and you should get open properties with your curves here. Now, this doesn't look like a curve at all. That's fine. We're going to make it curvy. If you don't have this, you want to go ahead to window and go to properties. With this open, you can then start to manipulate stuff, and you've got different tools on the side that basically can help you to go through various adjustments. Now, curves is a really, really complex adjustment. You can do an infinite amount of things with curves. You can match skin tones, you can alter the whole look and feel of an image, you can color tone. We're not going to go through all of those today because it'll be overwhelming and terrifying. We're going to stick to reasonably straightforward. So when you look at your curves, you've got these little arrow things down the bottom here, right? So you've got this one here and this one here. You also have a graph that shows in the background. Your graph is probably going to be different to my graph. This is the histogram. So we've got a video all about histograms. I'll go ahead and link that above, but this is your histogram. So this is just basically a visual representation of where your pixels are in terms of light and dark. You have the dark side, blacks, which is over on the left, and then you have the white side, which is over on the right. In between those, you have your normal histogram steps. So you've got whites, highlights, midtones, shadows, and blacks. Are you with me? Across all of that is this weird line, okay? So you've got this line that kind of goes down the middle, And then you have your kind of like different axes up and across. The main thing that you need to know is you can use these little toggly bits, these little arrows underneath, to literally pull across and close the gap between the whites and the blacks. This is exactly what we do when we do a levels bump. There is a video on that as well. I will try and link it above, but I'm probably going to run out. When we do a levels bump, we're basically just doing this. So you can see these areas where we've got super bright light down here and on the dress. Now, if we go ahead and close the gap to the whites, those areas will end up being completely white. There's no data left there at all, right? So you can see this is awfully blown out and this is awfully blown out. That's because we closed the gap. We moved the top pin immediately left, so all of the whites have been pushed sideways. So let's reset that off. You can do the same with the blacks. So the darker areas we can pull in, and we're now closing the gap to the blacks, but we're also crushing the shadows at this point because there is quite a lot of shadow detail in this image. Okie dokie. So those are kind of your basic things that you could do. Just grab and close those gaps, close those gaps. The same thing happens when we do a levels bump, so you can hold down Option or Alt on your keyboard, and as you bring it in, you can see the clipping. All right, so that's showing you everywhere where there is no data left within each individual color channel. Same happens on blacks. Basics, basics, basics. Now, what people usually use curves for is to adjust exposure and contrast. Those two things are what we're going to look at right now, because that is the real kind of crux of what curves is all about. And basically you can use it on every single image you have. So if we wanted to increase the exposure of this image, all we need to do is grab the middle of the line, okay? The middle of the curve. So we're going to grab it. Do you see how that's put a pin on it? We can then click and drag that, and you can either go up or left. They both do the same thing in this case. So that will increase the exposure of the image. Now I usually kind of just freehand it. We have now increased the exposure of the image to quite a large degree. Now that increases the exposure in the mid-tones, okay? So the whites are kind of left where they are, the blacks are kind of left where they are at the extreme points, but you're lifting everything in between. You can do the exact opposite, decrease the exposure, you can pull down or to the right. If you want to delete a pin that you've popped in there, just hit the backspace and it will delete that pin back off, reset back to normal, and we can go again. So you can also drop the whites, so you grab the pin at the top right and you can bring that down, and what that does basically is it calms the whites, so it darkens the whites, but it also drops the exposure of everything on kind of like an exponential curve down to the blacks, which it leaves alone. Now let's go ahead and reset that back off. And again, you can do the exact same with the other side. So now we're lifting the blacks. We're essentially matting the blacks. If we just lift it a little bit, we mat off the blacks. What we then want to look at is contrast curves, because this is something that you can use all of the time to add contrast or remove contrast from different areas of the image by using masks. So you don't have to use masks, but if we're doing a contrast curve, what that means is that we grab a pin and we darken the shadows, and we grab a pin and we lift the highlights. That is a very traditional contrast curve. And as you can see, we've added contrast to the image by doing that. Okay, so that's a contrast curve. If we go ahead and do the exact opposite, lift the shadows and then drop the highlights, what we then end up with is a decontrast curve. So look how it's decontrasted the scene. So you can creatively use those adjustments to affect all sorts of different things within an image. Let's say that you wanted to darken the scene but retain a lift in the blacks. Well, for that you would just literally lift your black point and then darken the scene. That will kind of decontrast and darken, right? And then the exact same works in the opposite too. We're not going to go over that one right now. Okay, so that's kind of the starting point of everything within curves. We're going to touch on two more things before I leave you guys out, because this is where we start getting a little bit more complicated, okay? So let's say that you have got an area of black or white within the scene. You can use curves to apply a perfect white balance. To do that, you need to make sure that you're nice and zoomed in on the image. Let's say that Alfie is actually the perfect shade of black down in this area here, we can go ahead and grab the middle pin. So the middle pin sets the grey point. If we grab the middle pin, we can then click on alpha. You want to kind of go for middle grey-ish. And what that does is that will set the white balance. Now, as you can see, the white balance is pretty solid. Nothing really changes. It's a very, very slight shift. If you were to use that middle pin on something that definitely is not black, white, or middle grey, you will end up with a bizarre coloured situation that shifts very, very abruptly. So you want to make sure that you're being careful and getting your white balance correct. So that's curves with white balance. If you're happy with that, you can just let go. If, let's say, for example, we wanted to very selectively alter areas of an image, what we could do is grab the little hand clicky drippy dropper tool, technical term, and when we click on that, what we can then do is drag over an area and then click and hold. And if we pull down, we darken. Right? And if we lift up, we lighten. Okay, so you can very selectively kind of spot treat different areas of the image in any way you would like. Now, I personally wouldn't really use this method, but I would when it comes to colour. I'm going to do that now. So reset that off, and now we're going to look at our colours. So when it comes to colours within curves, you have each individual channel, red, green, blue, okay? Remembering the opposites of those, if you've done any education with me, you'll know that the opposites of RGB is CMY. So CMYK is a direct opposite of RGB. So C is cyan, M is magenta, Y is yellow, and K is black. Ignore K for now, just focus on C, M, Y. So if C, M, and Y are the opposites of R, red, G, green, and B, blue, you can get an exact control of your colours. Opening up, for example, the red channel, you can decide whether you want to add more red or more cyan. So if you pull the curve down, you add cyan because you're removing red. If you pull the curve up, you're adding red. And you can selectively spot treat this within the shadows or the whites, just like we've done previously. So it's the same thing. In the green channel, same principle applies, and the same with the blue. So what you can do is split tone your images within curves, because you can grab your little clicky drippy dropper. We're on blue. I want to add blue to the shadows, but I want to add yellow to the highlights, okay? So what I'm going to do is make sure I'm clicking on a shadow area, and then I'm going to bring the blue channel up. So I'm adding blue. Now everything's going blue. Okay, then I want to go to a highlight area and I want to bring that down. So I'm adding yellow. And you can kind of go as far as you want to go with this, but that adjustment is more than enough to colour tone an image as you wish. And of course, you can mask away any area that you don't want to have on there, just like normal. We've gone through closing the gap to your whites and blacks, we've gone through general exposure changes, we've gone through contrast and decontrast curves, we've gone through matting the blacks and matting the highlights, and we've also gone through colour toning and spot treating. But there's one thing that we haven't done, and that's a general matting. So most photographers have their own individual style, and some photographers really like the matte style. So this image isn't edited, so it's pretty difficult to get a handle on what this would look like at the end, but a typical matte would be essentially to go ahead, lift the blacks, drop the whites, and then add a contrast curve. So adding a contrast curve to that would give you a matting effect in a way that a lot of photographers really, really like. So what you would probably want to do here is apply that. So you see how it's matted it off, and we've lifted all of the blacks. There's not really a super level of contrast. And then you would just adjust the opacity of the layer to get the strength of the effect that you would like. So for me, probably around about there. It's an introduction to curves. I hope I didn't lose you halfway through. If I did, then you won't be here. But if you stuck around, then thank you so much. I hope to see you all again really, really soon, and happy curving.